How come so many of us find most gaming conferences or events lately so underwhelming, boring, or straight up bad? What happened to the excitement and hype defining moments we used to witness at events like E3? Let's discuss. Almost without fail, every gaming event in recent memory has left people disappointed for the most part. I didn't really notice this affecting me until I watched Gamescom opening night live recently. And even though I thought it was a solid presentation, one of the better ones in a while, the fact that it was, I kind of find that sad. Even the Twitter poll Jeff put up afterwards had most people rating the show a B, which is pretty good. In stark contrast with what Microsoft's Gamescom event was a few days prior, where most people either didn't like it or straight up hated it. I don't really think of anyone that enjoyed that conference per se. So what happened to enjoying gaming events? Well, the first answer I came to was an obvious one. As we're getting older, we're harder to please, especially with games getting bigger and more complex, so it takes a whole lot more to impress us. One thing I remembered, we still get impressed and awed at indie games and smaller projects, so it can't be that. And are we impossible to please now? And again, no, it can't be that because of said indie games that I just said earlier. I think the problem lies somewhere in transparency of game development and the thought process in the back of our minds whenever we see a game get announced nowadays. We always have to worry in the back of our minds about if this game is going to launch in an actual good or playable state. Will there be some type of monetization in the game? And now, with recent news lines and allegations and lawsuits, we have to also put into effect what was the treatment and environment for the developers making the game in their respective studio. Obviously, games also take longer to make now, longer than ever before, so yearly conferences won't be able to match the amount of content that we got back on the 6th and 7th generation of consoles. We've seen the consequences of this with companies like Nintendo and PlayStation. Nintendo used to only do directs, but now they have indie directs called indies, I believe that's what they're called. And that's because they don't have enough content or updates on their own first-party lineups to give a satisfying direct by itself. We also see that PlayStation has stopped attending E3 in favor of doing State of Play, their own proprietary event. And even they have some presentations that will focus strictly on indie titles. They've had about 3 or more. And another thing that I believe kills the hype more than anything is when they do a big announcement, they hype it up, and it's just a CG trailer. Most of us see CG trailers as a waste of money that could have easily gone into the game's budget. It usually tells us nothing about the game. It might tell us what the story is going to be, but it doesn't tell us how the in-game visuals will look, what the gameplay is going to look like, or it doesn't even tell us what kind of game it is. We don't know if it could be turn-based, an RPG, action, shooter, tactical. We don't know anything from a CG trailer. And usually when we see a CG trailer, that also means that the game is far out from release, more times than not. When we put all this together, I think I have an answer somewhat. There's just too many variables in the gaming industry to be blindly excited for announcements anymore. When half of a conference is being made up of CG trailers, games as a service, or games that just don't look that interesting from the AAA perspective, it's no surprise most people aren't that surprised or impressed anymore. I have to give credit to EA in this regard, with their recent showing of Dead Space, where they showed a behind-the-scenes look at very early footage of the game running in engine, and they also did the same thing last year with Dragon Age and with Battlefield. They were transparent and actually showed the game even though it's far off from release. This left gamers not only interested in the game, but also the development process as a whole, so it was a win-win for EA and the developers. I actually hope more companies follow suit with this and take this as an example. I honestly think that we could see a change for the better, because the fact that Gamescom opening night live was the best event is embarrassing, so I hope we do see a change. Hopefully we see gaming events in the future focus strictly on gameplay, or at the very least mention what the game is and then describe what it's going to be. Give people some kind of idea what they're getting into, confirm no monetization, stop making games as a service. There's a whole bunch of stuff they could do to improve this, but the reason people aren't impressed is just because there's too many variables. until then, I really hope that they make changes. But this trend is going to continue, and everyone will continue to be unimpressed about it until they make drastic changes in their presentation. For example, my favorite moment from the Nintendo Direct at E3 was when they announced Metroid Dread. Why was that my favorite announcement? One, they give you the title, they give you a cutscene, they give you actual gameplay. And then after that, they showed almost an hour or maybe more of gameplay on their Treehouse event. That's currently my favorite or most anticipated game right now. I have it pre-ordered already because I've seen gameplay, I've seen what it looks like, I know what it's going to be, I'm excited for it. There's other games that if I saw gameplay for them, I might be excited for them, but I know nothing about them. For example, The Last of Us Factions. We know that's coming, Naughty Dog's hiring for multiplayer. We have not seen gameplay of it. We know it'll probably look similar to Last of Us Part 2, which that'll be crazy for a multiplayer game. But again, we know nothing about it. There's rumors, and that's it. There's nothing confirmed about what's going to be in the game. So even though I'm looking forward to seeing it, I can't say I'm excited for the game because they have not shown anything. And I believe that's the main problem. Again, all these variables, and the number one variable being show gameplay, confirm what your game is going to be, and then, of course, the most important variable of them all, be a good game.